Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber, and alongside me is Logan Camden. And what an incredible day of conference championship football we just got to witness. Ravens Chiefs was fun, but then we got a comeback for the books in Niners Lions. Brock Purdy, the comeback kid, Logan, Montana Brady hybrid 2.0. Throw out all your stats about Shanahan when trailing by big numbers, because guess what? Back-to-back weeks, they've done it. Let's just start with Purdy talk, because I feel like that's going to be the prevailing storyline from this game. What did you think of his performance?
I think Brock Purdy's an average quarterback. That was my conclusion I reached at the end of this football game. And it's so funny how this set up, Carson. I was talking to a friend of the program, Donnie, a.k.a. Michael Donahue, and he goes, man, dude, he called it. He called the game script. Purdy had just thrown the interception. The Lions are roaring. They're taking the storm. They're getting all the momentum. And he goes, dude, Purdy is doing the classic Jimmy G, and he says he's going to dig them this hole, and then right at the end of the game, he's going to steal it for the Niners, and he's going to play the hero. And that's where I come down is, like, I think that Brock Purdy is still an active limiter of this offense. And I felt that way for some time now. I think he's small. I think he lacks a great presence in the pocket. I don't think he has an elite arm, and I think he can tend to be flustered sometimes. And the only thing that I really think Brock Purdy does at an above-average level is play extension, throwing on the run, and timely scrambling. Like, I think he lives off of the immaculate skill talent here. Debo screens, Christian McCaffrey handoffs, Ayuk miracles. He has a hard first half. He misses Ayuk wide open in the red zone in the second half. Like, I think he's a mediocre QB, and I know a lot of people, even my roommate told me during the game, he goes, you're too hard on Brock. And then he immediately follows it up, Carson, with he was the last pick in the draft. And we covered this on last show.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold Brock Purdy to a different standard because he was a 7th-round draft pick. I think it's a really cool story, guys. Tom Brady has the greatest football story ever. It's like a Disney movie or Kurt Warner, right? Those stories are awesome, and I root for Brock. But I'm not going to hold him to a different standard. I'm going to hold him to an NFL caliber standard, and he is an average quarterback. What has this shown us? You can win with an average quarterback. Brock stepped up in big moments, too. I'm not going to completely crap on the kid. He made 2 massive scrambling plays, and he does that really damn well. When you are an average quarterback, but you have one elite trait, one thing that makes you stand out. Carson, that's why we had more faith. I believe you agreed, right? Brock Purdy was the quarterback.
Yeah.
We had more faith coming into this football game, and that was the exact factor that we said. He moves around. Now, I think Goff played a very good football game, too. I want to be clear about that. Nothing against Jared Goff, but what ended up winning the game? What closed the door? What emphatically shut the door for the Niners in this one? It was Brock, and I'll give him that. But it doesn't change the fact that I think he's a very average NFL quarterback.
I don't think that we're far apart on Purdy at all. The one thing that I will say that this game very clearly showed is that Brock Purdy has massive balls, and that's something that he's shown repeatedly. And my least favorite narrative about Brock has been that he looks like your typical high ceiling, low floor game manager, because he just doesn't play that way. The Brock Purdy experience is erratic. It can be an emotional roller coaster, and he has looked frighteningly off for good chunks of these last 2 weeks, and he will put some balls in harm's way. And I legitimately think he may have some sort of voodoo magic or connection to the underworld, because the ball that Ayuk caught, that deep ball that was fundamental to changing the momentum of this game, was an interception half the time. The other 49.9% of the time, maybe the DB just doesn't make the play. The 0.1% of the time where Ayuk catches it for whatever it was, a 40-something yard gain, that only exists for Brock Purdy. The number of plays he's had like that this year, the dropped interception early where it looks like he is throwing the ball to Cam Sutton on a route downfield, just like a fly ball. They just bounce off of DB's hands. So he's got whatever sort of black magic that he's harnessing there going for him. And there are those scary moments, but he'll also take chances. He has that gunslinger instinct, that playmaking gene, and he doesn't have the physical tools for that to always work out. But sometimes it does, and sometimes that's what you need. He'll throw back across his body to Juwan Jennings. He will scramble for 50-plus yards total over this game, including that huge third down that helped put this game on ice effectively. He'll complete that pass to Juszczyk where he's scrambling, he bounces off a guy, and he's got him on the sideline, and he just keeps his tiptoes in bound. He has that playmaking gene, and That does make games like this feel different when a Brock Purdy is at the helm versus, say, a Tua Tagovailoa, because we know that Tua doesn't have that same play extension outside the pocket, and he is going to be willing to throw behind the sticks, and he may just be too conservative, and you may die because of that. With Brock, if you're going to die, it's going to be because he's going to make some back-breaking mistakes, which he can make. But he also has the upside. He has that instinct to go out there and try to win you the game instead of just say, I can't lose this game for us. And when you're down 17, you need a dude who is at least going to go out there and try to win you this game. So no, this isn't about Brock Purdy to me. He made some mistakes. It was an emotional roller coaster in this one. But you also just have to give him props because the guy is mentally tough. To do what he did last week, that wasn't an exceptional game-winning drive, but as a second-year quarterback in the playoffs, that was impressive. But in this game, dude, just to hang in there, to not tuck your head between your legs, that alone is impressive. And that, to me, is why Brock Purdy is a guy who the Niners can win games with, why he is a guy who's better than Jimmy G. No, he's not an elite quarterback. You can't elevate him into those conversations. And there were some moments in this game where you're like, yeah, Brock Purdy's going to be the reason that they lose, which was the exact same way that it felt for a majority of last week. But he did enough. He made a couple clutch plays, and when your team is this good and you have this sort of talent around you and this sort of coaching, it's enough to get you to the Super Bowl. And I don't think any of us can be surprised by that. Like, this to me is the exact, from my perspective, we are who you thought you were game for Brock Purdy. This is how I felt about Brock. He's solid. There's going to be some high highs, some low lows, and the Niners are good enough that in a flawed NFC, they're probably going to be the last team standing, and here they are.
Carson, I mean, phenomenal points across the board. That is such a great point about Tua. The difference, and that's why I say
let's shit on Tua some more. We haven't done that enough this year as he's sitting on his couch.
I'm kidding. What I mean is the one elite trait, the play extension. And this is what's going to happen. You mentioned that he's a second-year quarterback. These are the things that you have to go through. You have to win tough games like this, where you dug yourself a hole, and Brock Purdy dug himself out. He didn't put his head down, and it is impressive, and I think that you can have more confidence with Brock in your quarterback. Like you said, this doesn't change for me what Brock Purdy is as a quarterback. I don't look at him as an elite quarterback talent, but the fact that he's done this, the fact that he has led these game-winning drives, it shows you that he does have a different level of poise, a different level of confidence, a different level of balls. He's got big, fat nuts.
He does.
And he's going to make plays. There's some guys that have it, and there's some guys that don't, and Brock has it, and I think you can roll with Brock as your guy. He's not perfect. He's not a great quarterback, but like you said, dude, you can win with him, and with a team that's talented enough, that's enough.
Do you think they can win the Super Bowl with him? Because the discourse throughout this game was so funny to track, because now all we're going to hear is that Purdy is the second coming of of Montana and Brady, whereas in the second quarter it was, they need to get another guy at quarterback. Where do you fall on that spectrum? Like, when you are talking about facing not Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, not young Jordan Love and a Packers team that wasn't expected to be here, Patrick Mahomes in his fourth Super Bowl appearance in 5 years. Like, is Brock a guy you believe can win in those circumstances?
Considering how up and down the first half, or considering how down the first half was, and considering how Spags just completely dismantled Lamar Jackson, it didn't completely dismantle, and the Ravens had a good offensive second half, but if he can neutralize the Ravens like that for an entire half, I wouldn't bet on it. Like, I think the 49ers are going to have to exert a stupid amount of pressure on Mahomes. I think they have to get a ton of push that we didn't see Baltimore get today. It's not going to be because of Brock. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I agree with that final assessment. And bottom line, I am surprised that the Niners are opening as favorites, 2.5-point favorites to beat the Chiefs, because I just think we've seen what happens when you make Mahomes an underdog, man. And the Baltimore was probably the best team on football on paper, and they had that elite quarterback talent, and it just didn't end up mattering against this Chiefs defense that is so good, and against Patrick Mahomes, who was inevitable. And we can get into this conversation more, and we'll talk about that Chiefs game later. We got plenty of time to talk about the Super Bowl, but I just think seeing where you lay fundamentally on if Brock is that guy is interesting. The other dude who I think we have to talk about is Kyle Shanahan, just in the sense of what he has done over the last 7 years with this team. Unbelievable how special this is, because the fact that we're having this debate alone about, well, is Brock average? Is he a little bit above that? Is he a little bit below that? Whatever you may think. Some people think he's elite, and I think those people are eventually in for a rude awakening when, a couple of those fly balls actually end up getting caught.
Yeah.
But to do this with two different quarterbacks, one of whom was just flat out not good in Jimmy G, to consistently do it on the back of elite offense, it's unbelievable. And I just think he deserves so much credit because there is so much anti-Shanahan sentiment and anti-John Lynch sentiment too. I think Niners fans just have crazy expectations that people overlook that they are doing the hardest thing in the NFL, which is winning a ton of games without elite quarterback talent.
Yes.
So hard to do. And to do it on the back of elite offense across two different quarterbacks. And we talked about even Nick Mullins, if you look at like the rookie passing stats per game, dude, he's all the way up there. It's just remarkable what he's done, and he's had such an influence on modern offense. There's so many dudes from the Shanahan tree, but he is the guy who stands at the top of the credit list, in my opinion, for what the Niners are doing and what they've been doing.
It's a complete anomaly compared to the rest of the NFL. I mean, look at how we've talked about it all playoffs long. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. And the one thing is that I do think that the Niners have been kind of beneficiaries of not having the most stellar quarterback competition in the NFC. I think that is a serious component. And I mean, the best quarterbacks every year are going to knock themselves out in the AFC, but still, this was an NFC that had Aaron Rodgers, that had Russell Wilson, that has had elite quarterbacks in them. And you're exactly right. Shanahan is continually, again, and think about this matchup. I mean, they said it before the game. It's Jared Goff versus Brock Purdy. It's the number one overall pick versus the dead last pick. And they get it done. It's, Carson, I don't know if there's another coach or coordinator in NFL history that has elevated quarterback talent. And again, I think the players are a huge component of this too. The offensive line, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, all of them obviously deserve their share of credit too. But I don't know if there's been anybody that has consistently elevated subpar quarterbacks to this level. I mean, Shanahan might be like the QB guru, the GOAT. And I know that, like you say, I think that sentiment stems from obviously the Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl when Shanahan doesn't run the ball out and they ended up, selling that game. But he's one of the greatest offensive minds in NFL history, man. I think that's plain to see.
He is, and I think he's proven that. It's probably not the case that a team keeps finding guys you think could be the guy, like Logan. I know it sounds hilarious, but there were multiple week stretches where people were like, is Nick Mullins the guy?
Is CJ Beathard the guy?
Well, I don't know if that ever got there, but it's all Shanahan, dude. But you do have to give props to the skill position guys here because, my God, CMC is special. CMC might be one of the handful of best running back talents that we've ever seen.
I concur.
This is an all-time season from him. Debo was phenomenal in this game. Ayuk, just special concentration on that deep ball that he caught. So the totality of the offense does deserve credit. On the flip side of this, Logan, I think the major storyline of the game for the Lions is going to be Dan Campbell effectively leaving 6 points on the board. They go for it on fourth when they could have gone up 27-10, made it a three-score game, and then trailing 24-27, they go for it on 4th and 3, both times in scoring position. I know that you are generally a take the points advocate. How did you feel about these decisions?
I am the take the points advocate. I told my roommate right after the game, I said, man, this is huge for the agenda I'm trying to push on my podcast. I just think, here's my theory too, and we'll talk about this, I assume, in Chiefs-Ravens too. My fundamental theory is when you get extra possessions, any team, I don't care who you are, if you get an extra possession, a fumble, an interception, if something goes your way and you end up with the ball one more time than you weren't expecting to, right? The other team scores, they kick you the ball. We're not playing make it, take it. You check it up. The other team gets the rock. That's how a kickoff works. If you get an extra possession, take the free points. That is 3 free points that you were not anticipating. It's a free meal, man. You found $5 on the street. It's a great day. You know what I mean? Like I'm eating today. And those are 3 free points, man. And it cost them here. And even worse, too, the 3rd and goal call to run the ball. What are you doing, Ben? What are you doing, Dan? I mean, You don't do that there. If you don't get the onside kick, and it was a phenomenal onside kick. I mean, the guy almost, he puts his hands on it.
Because he touched it early.
I know he touched it. I mean, but it was a pinpoint kick that could have been recovered. You're just taking the ball out of your team's hands there, man, and it's crazy. I do want to touch on something, though, too, Carson, that you mentioned. It really was a tide-shifting, completely momentum-swinging, like, right out of the second half.
Yeah.
We've been saying this anytime the Lions pull a Lions moment. First of all, this is the quintessential Lions moment. This is the Lions moment. Yeah. In the first half, everything's going right. You're up 24-10. You got a missed field goal from Jake Moody. Brock Purdy gives you a gift. He's having a horrible game. Then you get outscored in the second half. The Niners tie it up with 2 drives with back-to-back TDs. First of all, I don't want to just wash over that first 49ers drive. That was a miracle. You have Jawan Jennings. I assume, like you said, Carson, I assume a Lions curse. Maybe Bobby Lane kicks in here that comes back and gets the Lions. You have the Jawan Jennings huge catch on third down that he just goes and snags.
He's tough, bro.
He is tough. And you're sitting there going, uh-oh. I think I see it coming. And then you have the Ayuk play. Oh, they're going to get off the field, and it bounces off the shot. I mean, right there is when it just, boom.
Yeah.
It's Niners roll time. Right out of that, you got the Jahmyr Gibbs fumble. The Lions can't pin down a punt at the 1-yard line, and then the Niners march right back down, take the 27-24 lead. And in between these, the Lions drives, the Lions are putting together good drives, and Josh Reynolds has 2 crucial third down drops. I mean, it is the anvil dropping off the mountain. It is your heart sinking into your stomach. It is the meltdown. And I'm not gonna let Jared Goff off the hook either here. Goff played a good game, and I thought he executed well enough that the Lions could have won. If Josh Reynolds makes those plays, the drives continue. We don't know what that leads to, right? And Jared Goff put those balls on the money. But there were early plays in the first half, and there were multiple instances in the second half where Goff just missed guys. The Gibbs wide open on that seam route in the first half, that's points. Laporta on a corner, that extends a drive, and he just misses these throws. There's another play, and like I said, it's not all on him. Reynolds has 2 drops in this one. Jamison Williams doesn't catch that flea flicker. He's not even looking for it. Like, there really are little pebbles getting thrown into this Lions pond that really could have had a butterfly effect kind of change on this game, but he could have played better. It's not on Goff. I do put the lion's share of the blame for this game on Dan Campbell, but
that's interesting.
It's on Dan Campbell. It's just, I don't know, man. Lions bad luck. This is the only team that I can picture this happening to, and it.
Yeah, if the Chargers could get this far.
Yeah, well, that's true. Actually, I could maybe see it too if Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. But Detroit, this is just like, if it's going to be a team, man, 27-0 in the second half with a 14-point lead, it's this, or not, because they end up getting points, but they get dogged.
Right, but
man.
The run.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say about the decisions. You cannot look at this game and say that it was the right thing to do, because it is literally what cost them the game. We can't say exactly what the butterfly effect would be if they just take the field goal, right?
True.
But at the end of the day, you lose by 3. You could have had 6 more. But we do such results-based thinking, and sometimes the process is just independent of that. Like, Josh Reynolds just drops a ball, man, on 4th and 2. And I didn't love going for it there. I get that if you go up 3 touchdowns, you are foot on the neck. Like, then it feels like that game is over. But 3 scores is a pretty damn good spot to be in. But my thought is 4th and 2, you've been running the ball effortlessly. They had 150 plus rushing yards in the first half. They were getting whatever they want. Stick to that. 4th and 2, run for it. But the play call was still there. Goff made the throw. Josh Reynolds just dropped. It would have been an easy conversion. And the second time, I actually liked going for it, because at that point I'm thinking, this is a 48-yard field goal. So let's say it's a 70% chance you make this and get 3 points, or you go for it. You haven't been able to stop the Niners for a while. They've been getting what they want. So 3 points doesn't look as good as maybe it did when you were up 14. Like, you really want to get those 7. And that's totally a situation in which they can convert. They just didn't have the right play call there. So I don't want to put this on Dan Campbell, because I think that those decisions are totally justifiable. Running the ball on 3rd down, that was not. I get it. You think there's whatever percentage chance that we just get this. I bet they thought it was probably a 60-something% chance. But if you don't, it's just too costly. Like, I think you need to give yourself 2 passing plays and preserve your clock, because it's okay if we don't get it on 3rd, then we still have 4th and 1, and we've only let 6 seconds run off the clock. We haven't had to burn a timeout. You burn a timeout and the game is effectively over because there's a 10% chance that you recover the onside kick. So that's the one to me that I think is tough to justify, but this is what this team has done, man. They've been hyper aggressive. That's what Dan Campbell does. All these dudes believe in him deeply. It is painful because of the results, but I could see this going the other way. Josh Reynolds catches that ball. They march down for 6. Maybe the game is over. Or they drop a better play call on 4th and 3. They get it. They go up. That's the difference in the game, instead of them playing scared when the Niners have been moving the ball effortlessly. So I just don't want to shred him for that, because there were other things at play. At the end of the day, it was mostly outlier plays, dropped interceptions, dropped passes. The Jahmyr Gibbs fumble was killer because that set up a short field for the Niners. It was all of those things to me, more than, hey, those were unjustifiable decisions.
I completely agree. I say lion's share because I think Dan, really did dictate the end of this game, but no, it really is. Juwan Jennings, crucial one-handed catch. Brandon Ayuk catches an insane TD. Gibbs fumble. It really is and that's why I can't put it all on the defense. Like, you could look at this and go, oh, the Niners put up 34 points. Why isn't it on the Lions defense? Well, they got a short field. They had some freak plays where they had them set up, hemmed up, ready to, get them off the field, and these freak things happen. I do think the defense deserves some part of the blame, especially towards the end.
They were tissue paper in the second half. We can't excuse the defense, which has been their issue all year. They haven't been able to stop people, and shocker, they couldn't to one of the best offenses in the league.
True. I don't want to completely absolve them either, but just crazy, man. And right after that Gibbs fumble into the TD, man, like, you really could just feel here we go. It felt like the collapse was coming, man. You could see it from a mile away.
Yeah. The Lions defense just wasn't good enough this year, and ultimately,
and they're really
that
young,
was probably
man.
always going to be their undoing.
They're really young.
They're really young. They're trending upwards. It's a success for them to be here. They were a 12-win team. They're in the NFC title game. They've revitalized Jared Goff. This was one of the best years of his career. And yeah, he didn't go out there and win this game for him, but he didn't lose it. He didn't have that embarrassing Jared Goff play, and he was definitely done in by some drops. And that's the one other thing that I will flag from this game that is probably going to get washed away a little bit because of the comeback.
That the Lions had this in the palm of their hands, or what?
Well, more so that the Niners defense was getting brutalized, dude. And by the way, didn't look great against the Packers either, and specifically against the run. Teams have been running it down their throat these last couple weeks, and these are teams that are committed to running the football, and the Lions are super strong in the trenches. But as I said, man, first half, they were getting whatever they wanted. It was the most rushing yards allowed by Kyle Shanahan defense in a half, I think they said on the broadcast. And then when you think about 6 points left on the board, the dropped passes, like, Lions could have hung 40 on them. In the second half, the Niners were better, no question, but they were also bailed out by some of those situational errors. And I was thinking first half, I literally looked up Steve Wilks' resume because I'm like, man, he has been bouncing around recently. He's had 5 jobs in 5 years, and I was ready to say, yeah, he's going to be moving on to a new one after this, because the Robert Saleh to DeMeco Ryans to Steve Wilks transition hasn't been ideal for this Niners defense. They're still talented, but recently they haven't been producing at the level of an elite defense, and it's that the Chiefs defense has just looked a whole lot better, paired with the massive quarterback gap where I'm like, I'm taking the Chiefs in this game when it comes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they still are uber talented, but I can. They look. And one of my friends, Angelo, actually pointed this out to me. Sad Lions fan, Angelo. He pointed this out to me before the game too. That a reason why the Niners' overall rushing stats look so different is because they've so consistently gained leads in games that teams were forced to throw against them. So you look at their overall rushing output defensively, and they rank 3rd or 4th. But in terms of yards per attempt, and in these recent weeks, like you mentioned, in terms of yards per attempt on the season, they're 14th. So they really are a league average rushing defense. I think they're an elite passing defense on their best days, and they still are super talented, but I do think this Niners defense is a little more human.
I do as well. So props to them for making it through, man. Logan, I just want to say you nailed your predictions overall. You had both these championship games mapped out. You had both the winners. And if the Chiefs come through, you will have nailed it overall. And you will be one of very few people to have said that. Any final thoughts on this game before we do talk about the Chiefs beating the Ravens?
I think the Lions are going to be back here soon. This is a really young team. I think they've built a great culture. They've got a lot of young talent. They have a great GM. And Ben Johnson, do not go to Washington. Please stay in Detroit. Please stay with this great O-line, with this shield that you have in front of you and Dan Campbell, with this great, not great quarterback, almost great quarterback. I believe in Jared Goff.
Good quarterback.
I believe in Jared Goff. You have Montgomery, Gibbs, so many weapons at your disposal. I just think this is the perfect situation. We can always go, it's time for the upgrade. It's time for that natural transition to head coach. If the Falcons job was available, like you tweeted out, Carson, I think that would be a perfect fit for Ben, where you got a bunch of toys. But to me, Detroit is the perfect situation, and I would not give it up. Don't go to DC, man. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's not ideal for the boy Benny, but man, I mean, he has done nothing but prove that he deserves to be a head coach somewhere. He deserves to have the reins of a franchise because he is one of the best play callers in football, point blank. And I thought that he showed that yet again today. And I was just thinking, man, the Falcons, dude, all of those toys to play with. Oh, boy, they missed out. But I love what the Lions have built. They're going to have to figure out that defense, and that was always the thing. If you are a vulnerable defense and you also don't have an elite quarterback, if you're missing those two components, how are you going to win the Super Bowl? You're not. And that's been what I've said about the Lions. But the fact that they got here and they were within a one-score game of going to the Super Bowl, super impressive. They're ahead of schedule. And you look at just the overall offensive cast, man. Jameer, home run. Unbelievable this year. Amon-Ra, as good as he was last year, this was the first team All-Pro breakout season, and he was really good again today. He did have a drop, but he was overall really good. Laporta, phenomenal rookie tight end. Like, they're trending upwards. They just got to figure out that defense. And they have a couple foundational pieces there, but they need to build out the whole defense, and they really need to upgrade the secondary.
I just want to shout out the Buffet boys for the one time. Ragnow, Jonah Jackson, Penei Sewell, bruh, dogs.
Yeah.
Sewell's I don't know if he's the best in the game yet. He's damn sure close. That dude's a beast, and I cannot believe – I know who they passed on to get him, but I cannot believe people ever doubted that pick, man. He was as no-brainer as no-brainer gets, in my opinion. He's the man. There's one play, actually, final thing. There's this one play where they bounced Sewell out on a counter. It was that 3rd and 12 with Jahmyr Gibbs where that was another remarkable thing about the Lions in the first half. Their average distance on third downs in the first half was 11 yards per play, and they converted on 5 of 7. They run the ball with Gibbs on that little toss to the left side, which is so, deceptive. Another great play call by Ben Johnson. Sewell bounces out, and it's a really small detail. The guy that bounces out was Sewell. I don't remember what lineman it was, but he pushes him, and he tells him, go get that guy. And he leads the way for Gibbs and gets behind him. Like, it's just... in the middle of a play, he is captaining and he is directing traffic like a point guard or something, man. It's cool. He's one of the best O-linemen in the game.
He is, and I really wanted him to catch a pass. When he was out there in the flat calling for it, I wanted him to get that ball. But it's a really good offensive performance, bro. Like, they put up 442 yards, 31 points, 28 first downs, could have had more. That's such an impressive collective effort. Really, really one of the great offenses in football, and they have been all year. And after... they didn't necessarily have a slump, but there was a little point in the mid to late range of the season where they dropped a couple games. The defense was really suspect. Jared had a couple goof games, and for them to bounce back and get to this point, I think it's all encouraging for the Lions. It hurts that you didn't get this one, but the expectations coming into the year, if you said that you were in this spot, I think you'd be pretty happy as a Lions fan. Now I understand that you probably want to perish, and you're probably thinking that you can't have shit in Detroit, but you're able to have more in Detroit than you were a year ago. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is bringing you an offer that'll help make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code NERDS. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets, only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code NERDS. The crown is yours.
Let's talk about Chiefs-Ravens, Logan. Because you and I disagreed on this game beforehand. You have been the ultimate Kansas City Chiefs advocate this whole year, and I was there with you for a long time. You just hung in longer than me, man. I bailed ship, and I give you all the props for that. What did you take away from this game for the Chiefs?
I mean, just this is the best defense that Mahomes has ever had, and they completely bailed him out in this game. And I thought this was a good Mahomes game, but I mean, this is far from a masterpiece, right? I mean, just massive credit to Steve Spagnuolo and the Kansas City defense for winning this game. Justin Reed, Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed. They're up 17-7 at the half, and they win this game 17-10. It's just an unbelievable game plan and performance from this team and this coordinator. Timely disguised defensive back blitzes. I thought that was going to be a huge key in the Lions game. Glenn doesn't dial up as many, but that's a huge component in this one. They're spying Justin Reed on Lamar Jackson during the game. That was a key for me going into this game. I said, I laid out the Steelers' recipe and what we normally do, and I thought that was a huge key. The entire game, if it's a linebacker, you have to have a guy on him because Lamar is that kind of player. You just need to give him that attention or you're going to get burnt. And they got a ton of pressure and dominated. They got pressure and push at the line of scrimmage. I mean, they dominated the trenches. Carson, that to me was the most surprising aspect of this game. I thought that Kansas City on both sides of the ball, but moreover defensively, that's where I was super impressed. Baltimore has two of the best trench units in the league, O-line and D-line, and Kansas City moved them around in this game. I thought they won a lot at the line of scrimmage. And again, the Chiefs punted on 5 of 6 of their second half drives. The only one where they don't is when they ran the clock out. Like, if you had told me that the Chiefs were going to score 17 points in this one and win, I would have told you were a liar, a fat liar. And like I said, this is far from a Mahomes masterclass, but everybody doubted Kansas City, Carson, and I never understood the skepticism surrounding this team. The money on this game, 72% of the money was on Baltimore.
Wow.
28% was on Kansas City. That's insane. And they didn't have the number one defense. That's Baltimore, but I thought they had the second best defense, criminally underrated all season long, all pro first team talent everywhere. Jones, Sneed, McDuffie. I thought they had the better quarterback. Mahomes is better than Lamar. And I thought they had the best weapon of any player on the field in Travis Kelce. And the final component of this to me was that this was Lamar's first game on a big stage. I know that we can do these things, and I thought Lamar played a good game. I didn't think he, crapped the bed or anything. But this was his first time on a big stage versus a great defense. I've seen Mahomes here. I know how composed and ready he is for the big stage. This is kind of Lamar's thing too, Carson. Like, I'm not going to act like it was obvious Chiefs victory or even far from close. I did pick a 11-point victory. It's a 7-point victory, and the Chiefs do produce two of the most timely turnovers I've ever seen in an individual game. The fact that one right at the goal line and then two in the end zone, that's ridiculous, but people acted like it was David versus Goliath coming into this matchup. Everybody was on the Ravens coming into this one and treating Kansas City as this huge underdog. I never understood that narrative, and I think that they just got heavily underestimated coming into this game, man. Bottom line, though, like I alluded to at the top, Patrick Mahomes, the reason that I picked the Chiefs to win this game was not the overarching reason they did. It was a immaculate defensive performance from Spags and this Chiefs defense, man.
And that's what's so funny about this game, Logan, is it feels like a lot of what's coming out of this is Mahomes is inevitable. He's the best player ever, the best quarterback ever, all of which I agree with. This just isn't really the game that showed us that. This was the very rare game in which Mahomes did his Brady impression and was actually carried by his defense. That's what it takes to be in the GOAT convo, Logan. That's what a true GOAT does. You lean on the defense, and then people start to heap the praise on you. Of course, Mahomes did what he needed. He was the better quarterback in this game. He made a huge clutch play on third down, that throw to MVS to end this game. Big time stuff. There's nobody in the history of football who I would rather have quarterbacking my team in a situation like that. But this wasn't close to a Mahomes masterclass. They put up 17 points. It really was about the defense. And they have been sensational, and they have been this team's strength all year. And I am pissed that I jumped ship, dude, because I held strong until probably like week 15.
Dude,
saying
you were
the Chiefs are still my AFC favorite. I was, because what's the formula I always talk about, Logan?
Best QB,
quarterback,
great defense.
Best defense. That's what I always say. And dude, people may forget, people may not know. Last year, I was the ultimate advocate of I'm just picking Patrick Mahomes no matter what, it doesn't matter. We had Theo on for our Super Bowl picks, and that was basically my rationale. You picked the Eagles, he picked the Eagles. I was the pioneer of this, and now you've taken it, and you've beautifully held on to it, and I bailed on my own philosophy, and now I'm paying for that. And I legitimately don't know how I can ever pick against a Mahomes-led Chiefs team again, because this is the game, man, where they're just outmatched on paper, and it's against a team that has a better defense coming into this game. Chiefs defense is great, but the Ravens had the best defense in football. And of course, Mahomes is better than Lamar, but Lamar had been playing at an unbelievable level this entire year, and still they just find a way. But it really was about the defense. What a sensational performance. They were getting pressure all day. They were batting down balls, disrupted that screen on 3rd and 9 that could have been a big play. I thought the coverage was great. They got some coverage sacks in this one where Lamar is able to move around in the pocket and extend plays, but it just doesn't matter. There's nothing downfield. You mentioned Snead. What a huge play to strip Zay Flowers on the goal line. They were phenomenal situationally. They held the Ravens to 3 of 11 on 3rd down, just across the board. Masterclass. Spags was great. Everybody delivered. And that's been this team's greatest strength all year. So the offense has looked better in the playoffs so far, but it still hasn't been like humming. You know, they played a decimated Dolphins defense and they put up 26 points. And then they played a pretty decimated Bills defense and they looked really good, but they still didn't look like peak levels, right? They put up 27. And then this game is a weak offensive performance from the Chiefs when we look at the standard that they've established for themselves. But it's that defense. It's Mahomes, and by far the best defense that he has had. So it's just an incredible testament to the coaching here, to Mahomes, of course. You cannot downplay how insane 4 Super Bowls in 5 years is, especially when you've gone from suspect defense on the first Super Bowl team, right? Okay, defense. Last year, he loses his most productive receiver, the best receiver in football, and they still find a way. They still do it with Juju Smith-Schuster as their number 2 guy. And this year, when the offense had just been consistently pretty average throughout the regular season, they still find a way. It's special all-time stuff, and I'm certainly not picking against them keeping it up.
And they've had drastic identity changes, Carson. You're exactly right. And that's why people were skeptical about them last year. Without Tyreek Hill, they're going to fall off a cliff. And that was how I felt throughout this season, is even with the bad losses that we saw, you know, like to the Raiders or whoever you want to point to, because they had a horrible back half of this season. I mean, it was a bad stretch. You gave the best quarterback I've ever seen with my own eyes a great defense and a great running game. Oh my God, that sounds like the perfect playoff recipe. I'm never going to bet against Patrick Mahomes, Carson. I won't. Sorry guys, if I come on the show and for the next, I hope to do this until I'm in the dirt. If I come on here for the next 10 to 15 years, if I'm privileged to do so, I'm going to take Mahomes to win it every year, maybe, man.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to be in the dirt within the next 10 to 15 years?
God, I hope not. But if I am, I've had a good life, man. It's been a good run.
That's beautiful. That's powerful. And it's been a good run for the Chiefs, man. The other core member who we got to shout out, this was a Travis Kelce masterclass. Really in the first half, because after that, the offense just didn't do much at all. But 10 catches on 10 targets for 102 yards and some massive clutch plays. 4th down on the first drive. Huge play to set up the Chiefs' touchdown. The first touchdown. What an unbelievable adjustment. Such impressive body control on that catch. And then Mahomes has that scramble on 3rd down where it was 9.8 seconds to throw. And you get a fantastic diving snag from Kelce. He has just been so reliably dominant in these playoff settings. And coming into the postseason, I was like, is he even going to be their number 1 weapon in this run? Does he have to be? Could it be Rashee Rice? It's Kelce. It's probably going to be Kelce until he is in the dirt, Logan, along with you perhaps. Like, he just steps up. He's open over the middle of the field a whole lot, and Mahomes has so much faith in him. There's such a connection there. But his career playoff stats are ridiculous, dude. 86 yards per game, 19 touchdowns in 21 games. Mahomes now has an exact regular season worth of stats. Our friend Gabe tweeted it out. It's ridiculous. It's like 4,800 something yards, 39 touchdowns, 7 picks. If you extrapolate Kelce's career playoff numbers to a regular season, a 17-game season. He's averaging 1,469 yards and 15 touchdowns. Disgusting. He's first all-time in playoff receptions now, second in playoff yards, second in playoff touchdowns. The only dude who can sniff Jerry's records in the postseason has actually surpassed him now in receptions. This was a late-stage GOAT performance from him. This was a reminder, hey, I am still at that level in the big moments. It felt sort of like when LeBron dials back the clock to his really peak level, like he just did the other night. Like, yeah, maybe I'm not always at that level when I need to be. I get there, because there were stretches throughout the regular season where Kelsey just did not look like the same guy that we're used to. And in this game, he was phenomenal, and he has been the consistent staple alongside Mahomes and Reed, of course, and he delivered.
I want to give those exact Mahomes numbers that you were getting. Yeah, 4,800. Dude, the rushing numbers are what astound me, too. 4,800 total passing yards, 44 total touchdowns, 39 passing, 5 rushing, with nearly 500 rushing yards.
Yeah.
It's absurd, man. It is.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Ravens here, though, Logan, because they ultimately let an opportunity slip here. They were the favorites. They were at home. The defense held the Chiefs to 17 points, and they produced 10. Who do you think is most responsible for this loss?
The coaching staff, if I'm being completely honest. I thought the Ravens got completely out-executed by Kansas City. They did not seem prepared. And again, like I mentioned, that was a component of this game to me. The New England Patriots, every time they got into the postseason, had a different level of composure and preparedness. Why? It wasn't just because they were way more talented, or they had a much better scheme or every game. One, they were cheating, those SOBs, but two, they were stealing the game plan. They had the script.
They were, in fact, controlling the pressure levels of the football and watching opposing teams' practices, sure.
So they were using illegal tactics to their advantage, but the Patriots kept getting there. And they kept doing it year to year, and it gave a different level of confidence in their players and their staff because so many of them have been together. That's a component. That matters to me. And this was the first time the Ravens had ever hosted an AFC title game in their franchise history, but also Lamar and this crew's performance on the biggest stage. So I expected a group that was going to be less prepared than Kansas City. That factored in, but I was disturbed, Carson. I think that's a good word for it, by what I saw out of Baltimore. This defense played Mahomes and the offense exceptionally well. Like I said earlier, if you had told me Kansas City was going to score 17 points, I'd say Lamar's going to his first Super Bowl. I really questioned the Ravens' offensive game plan coming into this game. They were consistently behind the sticks in the first half. Yeah. I thought they needed to run the ball more or supplement the offensive attack with screens and shorter concepts. The Chiefs repeatedly throughout this game, when Mahomes didn't have a classic Mahomes performance, we didn't need it, but they did things to supplement the attack and stay ahead of the sticks. The Ravens didn't. You add in the undisciplined aspect of it. They have 8 penalties for 95 yards, crucial penalties that bite Baltimore. The Van Noy unnecessary roughness, the Clowney roughing the passer, the Flowers taunting penalty. And you can say what you want about the Flowers taunting penalty. I didn't really have an issue with him flexing. My issue is when he stuck his finger in his chest. And it's like, bro, I understand.
Do you want that called on that stage as a football fan? Really? Oh, wow.
Well, maybe it's because the guy was wearing purple and black, okay? Maybe it's because he's a Baltimore Raven. I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
In the biggest stage, refs are going to take little things like that. You see it on the basketball court. You see it in football. They're going to call it. How do you beat the refs, and how do you do the best thing for your team? You act like you've been there before. You made a big play, Zay, and guess what? You do that every game. You don't need to run your mouth. You're Zay Flowers. You're a beast, man. We know that you're a beast. So when you go and you make that big play, you say, here you go, Mr. Ref. I'm going to go do it again. You don't need to talk mess to L'Jarius Sneed. You don't need to tell him, hey, man, I just big dogged you. Because you just big dogged him. You did it. There's no point in celebrating. Larry Fitzgerald and Barry Sanders, I believe both of them scored over 100 career TDs across all the seasons they played. Every time they scored, they said, here you go, Mr. Ref. I'm going to be back. They acted like they had been there before.
Yeah. But when AB was twerking, you didn't love that?
Dude, when
I mean, bro, it's the receiver position, man. It's part of the pedigree.
Antics.
You got to talk.
That's true.
My take on that, you know how I feel, bro. I'm damn near at the level in basketball of like, let's ban the tech unless they're in a physical
unless you're
altercation.
fighting. Yeah, man.
Dude, and that's basically how I feel about taunting. But what I think is better about taunting is that you can modify it based on the severity. Like, what if there was a taunting 2, it's 15 yards. I would honestly get rid of that. I don't think taunting should ever be 15 yards. To say to me that a guy was running his mouth a little bit too much, or he stood over you, or he waved goodbye at you on a touchdown, oh, heavens to Betsy. That's tantamount to unnecessary roughness, physically endangering a player, or passing interference, inhibiting what could be a key football play. The fact that he said he had sex with your mother, or he just looked down at you, like, come on, man, grow up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't impact football games. But if you are going to call that weak shit in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, make it a 5-yard penalty. 5 yards, okay? Make it appropriately punitive for something that really isn't a big deal and doesn't have any impact on the football game. That's my take on it.
I do think wholeheartedly in most sports, we should let the guys play more. There's an emotion, especially the NBA, man. The NBA is soft like Charmin. Like, the NBA has been soft this year, man. There's no personality.
Oh my God. The guy who was running at full speed and propelled himself up into the air to dunk on a fast break, hung onto the rim for a half second to stop his momentum so he didn't get hurt. And me, a 5'9", 65-year-old who has no ounce of athleticism in my body, thinks that he's disrespecting the game I love that was built by George Mikan. I hate that.
So do I. And like I said, I wouldn't have penalized Zay. The only thing that I think they got mad about was when he put that finger in the chest. If he hadn't touched him and he had just flexed, I think it would have been okay. But I agree. That's a great idea, Carson. I don't know why we don't. Because you're right. You're just flexing a little bit.
Dude, yeah. 5 yards. 5 yards is totally appropriate. 15 yards, that is the most severe penalty that we give in the NFL outside of spot fouls on pass interference. Settle down.
The other aspect of this that I think we have to address is Lamar Jackson, and I do not think that this entire game is on Lamar. I really don't. I think I've talked about my faith, control, and composure that I have in Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs have been here before. This was not a great Patrick Mahomes game, but he played a controlled game. 30 of 39, 240 yards, 1 TD, timely plays, and he didn't turn the ball over. And I want to give a lot of credit to the Ravens offense in the second half. They basically outgained the Chiefs 3-1 in the second half. That's crazy. They outgained them 336 to 319 in this game. The Ravens offense objectively outgained them. And Lamar hit big shot plays to Zay. Tommy Townsend pins Baltimore at the 1-yard line, and Lamar takes the offense from the 1-yard line to the other side of the field in the blink of an eye. They hit a 39-yard shot play to Nelson Aguilar. Like, they executed really well in the second half, but loaf bread Lamar turns the ball over in 2 big spots. And Carson, I hate to point it out, and I hate to be the guy, that is kind of the narrative that we're going to see Lamar fight from now on. It's not, Lamar's grown as a passer, and if you are still holding these weird preconceived notions that he can't hack it, he can't sling it, his play extension is unreal, he's got a cannon of a freaking arm, he is deadly accurate, Lamar Jackson's the man. The thing that he's going to have to fight is in big spots, crumbling. Like, they threw a stat up on the broadcast that I think encapsulates it perfect. I think it was the 10 points that they trailed by at the end of the first half was the largest deficit that the Ravens have had in 31 weeks of football. I mean, if you don't think Lamar Jackson is the MVP or exerts a stupid amount of control over a football game, I just think you're dead wrong. Lamar is stamped in this upper echelon of quarterbacks. He has done it way too damn consistently to knock him down a peg. So we've gotten over that barrier. We have crossed that threshold. The new threshold is that Lamar has to shut the door and handle business. He's got a fumble in this one where he just doesn't see the guy. And maybe you go, oh, well, the Chiefs got the pressure, and that's on the Ravens' O-line for not protecting him. Pat Mahomes can see that coming, and he's going to move out the way. You know, that's on Lamar. That fumble is on Lamar. And then the interception in the end zone, that's on Lamar. I don't want to completely excuse Zay's turnover, but to me, right on the 1-yard line, again, one of the clutchest defensive plays I've ever seen in any football game. Huge props to L'Jarius Sneed. Zay's going to do that every time. He's going for the end zone. Like, that's damn. He's just got to protect the rock better. And so that's another turnover that's not on Lamar, but that's what he's fighting. In basically every one of the Ravens' losses, it has been them falling apart at the end when they've played better. I think the
Yeah.
Ravens, you could argue, played better than the Kansas City Chiefs today. And they lost.
Well,
I mean, if Zay gets in the end zone, I'm saying apples to apples. Obviously, the Chiefs are going to have a different game plan.
Chiefs left points on the board,
Agreed.
though. Like, the Chiefs dominated this first half. They go for it. They don't get it. It would have taken a lot for the Ravens to win this game.
Also, another huge part of my take the points agenda. It was a free possession, guys. Lamar fumbled. He gave you a free possession. Take the points.
Again,
and
here's my thought, Logan. Where I come from, in the world of high-powered NFL offenses, we call a field goal a -4. Now, this ended up being a game where points were a little bit harder to come by than you expected, but I think it makes total sense. They had been moving the ball easily. They've been converting on all their 3rd and 4th and shorts up to that point. Go for it. Try to put your foot on the throat. They didn't get it. It's all right. I can live with that.
in Pittsburgh and down south, we call a field goal 3 points.
No, I know.
It's not completely on Lamar, and I want to give a lot of credit to Baltimore for bouncing back in the second half and having a really good performance. But I think that's the narrative, and that's what he's fighting from now on. And you know what?
Yeah.
Like I said, I kind of expect this is his first big game, man. Lamar's going to be back here. I think Lamar's going to be back in the AFC title game, and I think he's going to be better. These are growing pains. I think we're seeing him. It's like it's what happens, man. I mean, he's got to break through. He's got to get these bad games out the way, and I trust that Lamar's gotten better in virtually every aspect as a quarterback. This is the final stepping stone for him as a QB, shutting down games, ending them emphatically, making the clutch plays, and I think he's eventually going to get there. Lamar has shown no indication that he can't. He just didn't today.
Yeah, and playoff reputations develop quickly in the NFL. And as we've talked about, sometimes I think they're a bit unfounded because it is a crazy small sample size sport. It's not like the NBA where we see Joel Embiid in a handful of 10-game playoff runs consistently regressing for multiple tangible reasons, and it happens across the board every time. That's irrefutable. When you're talking about a dude who maybe plays a bad game 3 years ago, that will hang on to your reputation because it's memorable. It's a one single elimination football game. And Lamar had been bad in the playoffs up to this point, but I felt that he was a different player this year than ever before. I felt that he was the most polished passer with the best supporting cast around him, playing the most mature style of football. I just felt like this was a different beast, and he let me down. Because you said earlier that you felt like Lamar played a good game. I just thought Lamar wasn't good. I was completely underwhelmed by this performance on this stage, and I think that the stat sheet ends up looking better than how he actually played. He missed a lot of throws, man. A lot of throws. Lamar has been very accurate this year. He's been a really good pure passer, but he should have thrown a pick to Bolton in the first half, just cleanly jumped in front of that ball. And then, Logan, that's why he plays defense, right? Because that thing went right through those hands. But really bad
Thank you, Chris.
decision.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, you're welcome. Overthrew both Flowers and OBJ downfield a handful of times. Like, he did hit on a couple of shot plays in that second half, but generally when dudes were pretty open, I would say that he missed more than he made. And then the pick to Likely, season on the line, inexcusable. Threw into triple coverage, dude. Like, that ball never had a chance, and it was hilarious to me. Likely called for it. He was already in double coverage, and then the safety comes over and jumps right in front of it. But I don't know why he thought he was going to catch that ball. He thought he had that Monstar reach. He thought he had the Monstar hops. But Lamar, there's no reason for him to throw that football. That tanked the season. It's an inexcusable performance, in my opinion, from the league MVP on this stage. He did not go toe-to-toe with the best that the NFL has to offer in a chance where that dude wasn't his best. This wasn't peak Mahomes, and it was not close to peak Lamar. And the Chiefs defense balled out, but the Ravens had real chances, and Lamar missed them. And this was your chance to prove something, and you really fell short. Now you're going to have to live with that for an entire offseason and see if you can change the narrative next year.
I was going to say, too, and it sucks, man, because I don't know if people are... I don't know, like Josh Allen has played perfect, man, in losses, and we see Lamar get to an AFC title game, and it's just, I hate that we can't separate the variables, man. We really struggle with that in sports media, man.
Yeah, well, but also I would say, Logan, those situations are not equivalent. Josh, listen, I would love to be done talking about Josh Allen. I'm sure you're all tired of me talking about Josh Allen.
No, I'm not.
Josh has balled out. Josh has balled out, Logan. He has. It's been the tiny differences on the margin. Lamar, wouldn't have belonged on the field with those two last weeks, right? He was playing at a
100%.
completely lower level, and he's the dude who really has to prove individually, I can do that. And I am optimistic that he can. I believe that he will. He is still my QB3, right? It doesn't necessarily matter to me that Joe Burrow's been to a Super Bowl because multiple different favors went his way. I believe that Lamar is overall a better quarterback because I think the stress that he exerts on defense is insane, and he was mostly so efficient as a passer this year. I don't think that he is like a playoff dropper, permanent stamped. That's who he is. I just think he played a bad playoff game, and now he's got to show that he can rise above that.
I agree. I don't know if I'm fully with you on the Burrow point. It's very close to me between Lamar and Joe. I think Joe does special
close.
things as a quarterback. I still might. Joe versus Lamar is still a real debate to me, but I agree with you. There's no overarching playoff things that I take away from this, or Lamar's a sham.
Well, here's what I'll say, Logan. I'll always say this. Imagine if you gave Lamar, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. How would you feel then?
I think Lamar had really good weapons this year, man. I mean, Zay Flowers, OBJ, Mark Andrews.
Zay Flowers would be wide receiver 3 on that team.
Yeah, but
Zay's really good.
Zay's a monster.
Wide receiver 3 on that team.
True. I'm not. Joe Burrow does special things on the football field. I'm not ready to chastise him.
Well, I'm not chastising Joey. I love Joey. I'm just saying, when we're talking about separating the factors,
there hasn't been
all-time run from your kickers, some timely turnovers. These things matter.
True.
But that wasn't the case for Lamar. Lamar just didn't step up. He didn't play at the level that I hoped he would, and I was considering him for QB2. Not now.
The final thing I want to hit on with the Ravens before we get out of here just really is how I did feel like they came out flat and underprepared. And I don't know. They really got out executed. I would have had a completely different offensive game plan. I would have ran the ball more. I would have gone to the short pass. I think they dug themselves an early hole, and we have seen too, not only the narrative that Lamar can't close the door, the fact that Baltimore struggles to come back in games. And this wasn't the case in this game. They moved the ball well. They got into the red zone. They just crumbled when they got there. But it's a part of the Baltimore culture. You know what I mean? This has been their reputation the past couple seasons, is faltering when games are close and fighting back from big leads, and we see it again.
Yeah. And I think that you're absolutely right. Abandoning the run as quickly as they did, never really committing to the run in the first place, was ridiculous. Look at what the Bills, an inferior running team to Baltimore, did for the first half of football at least. They ran the ball down the Chiefs' throats, and then they hit them with the quick passing game to the running backs and the tight ends, and that was a huge part of the formula, and it was mostly successful. The Ravens handed the ball off 8 times today, Logan.
Inexcusable.
8 times, 2 of those being end arounds to Zay Flowers. So they handed the ball off to a running back 6 times. This has been the most dominant rushing attack in football consistently, and the only issue for the Chiefs defensively, if there is one, has been their ability to stop the run, where they just haven't been that good. They're 24th in rushing yards per attempt allowed. And the Ravens never committed to that, and they called it quits early, basically stopped, and they didn't need to play a desperate brand of football. They didn't need to be throwing every down. It's not like they were down 24 points in this game. They were down 10 with a half of football left. The Chiefs were not putting up any points to add to that deficit. I thought it was a really disappointing performance in terms of game plan from a coaching staff that I think has been really good. And the penalties were killer as well. Or maybe not killer, but they were costly. And the one thing that I will say, because I saw some people harping on the Roquan Smith unnecessary roughness. I saw KOC tweet about it. Hilarious seeing KOC tweet about the NFL. He was like, the Ravens' lack of discipline is laughable. That was a brilliant play. Like, it didn't need to be unnecessary roughness. That was excessive. Roquan Smith has no reason to run through the dude, but jumping there, when you're looking at a 1st and 5, of course you would rather have them take 5 yards of field position, but you have 5 yards 100%. Less to stop. It doesn't matter what your field position is nearly as much as it does that you get the ball back whatsoever. And it's a hell of a lot easier, even if they are 15 yards further downfield with the unnecessary roughness penalty, if you still only have to, if you have to cover those 10 yards of ground instead of just 5 yards, that's the right play. I do think they're a well-coached football team, but I did not think that they were well-coached today. I thought that they were outclassed by the Chiefs, who are just the class of the NFL, man. This is what they do. And I'm with you I'm back on the train. I'm back on the wagon.
Welcome back, my friend.
I think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl this year. And if they can win the Super Bowl this year, when the hell can they not? Even though we talked for a whole lot of this year about how it felt like an open field and it felt like, oh, everybody's flawed. I really thought the Ravens were playing some damn good football, and they were just outclassed in this one. They were outclassed. That's what the Chiefs do to you, man. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, Logan?
I'm all good, man. I'm excited. I'm really excited for this game. I think it is going to be a battle. Like I'm going to take the Chiefs. Would probably take the Chiefs even if you gave me 7 points for the Chiefs to cover. It's just a difference in the QB, man. But I'm excited. It's a good game. And I took the Lions to the NFC title game in the preseason. I just want to hold on to that, man.
Yeah.
Detroit, me and Marshall Mathers believed in you guys when nobody else did, man.
Yeah. I hope that they're back, dude. I do think that they're legit good. That offensive formula is for real. But they've really got to figure out the defense. In the NFC, you have to think is going to get tougher. Like the NFC, a lot of teams ended up being exposed as fraudulent this year. But if the Eagles figure out the defense and get their coordinators right, and obviously Jordan Love and the Packers are going to be a threat, like I think it's going to be tougher than it was this year when things did open up for them pretty nicely. But they took care of business. They absolutely deserve to be here. And you called it, man. You called it, so I got to give you your props there. All right, folks. That's going to do it for us. Hope you enjoyed the show and hope you enjoyed what really was a very, very fun day of football. If you did, and if you want to keep following along with us through the Super Bowl and also along with all of our NBA takes, you can listen to the full show across audio platforms and you can watch it on our YouTube page. You can also check out our trivia content across social, TikTok and Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh, and you can join our Discord if you want. That is at the link tree across our social media bios. You can also check out our merch. That is at thevolume.com. We've got hats. Logan is wearing it. We've got shirts. We got hoodies. We got the flags behind us. So you can find all of that also at our link tree. And with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.